India's market news headquarters. Cutting-edge analysis. Influential insights. Market-moving intelligence. Broadcasting live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. Tuesday morning, a day before middle of the week market holiday. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Nigel and Reema is with us here today as well. Guys, good morning.
Hi, and 1 week to go for the budget.
Yeah.
Same time next week, Tuesday morning, we will be talking about the budget. All set for it.
Well, that's right. And I don't think we have a holiday tomorrow, Prashant, but we have something special for our viewers, which we'll be getting. So no off tomorrow, but plenty of market action. So let's get straight to that.
Well, we can tell them watch from home.
But exactly, but our viewers can stay home and and we'll sort of tease that out for you in terms of what we've got lined up tomorrow morning for you. It's a special program. It's a market town hall, and more on that in a bit. But as always, let's begin with what you need to know as we begin another session. You got a broader. Yesterday's rally was broad-based, broader. I mean, not really broad-based, but broader as compared to like a one-trick pony that we had on Friday. The one pony was, of course, the IT sector on Friday, but that was such a large move that it kind of really eclipsed everything else, weakness in everything else. But yesterday it was, this and that and more, not just one sector. But I think PSUs was a common theme across oil and gas and, banks. And actually the PSU Bank Index was the top sectoral gainer. And many more stocks joined the party in that sense. So it was a solid start of the week with about 1/3% gain in terms of the session. Now, we were all, of course, watching out for the Powell interview with David Rubinstein last night, and it came through. And if you really want to pick out 2 or 3 things, it is that he said inflation prints, and I quote, do add somewhat to confidence that inflation is returning to target. But he did not really open the door for a July FOMC cut. And markets were not expecting it, although some were saying that maybe because, we've got 3 data prints which have been soft, which have been dovish. Well, who knows? The first cut in terms of market pricing is already still in September. So he's not really guided in a specific way in terms of a timeline for a cut, but he's kind of course, maintained that we are on that road. So it's not a question of if, but it's a question of when. And I think we'll get to hear more, of course, around the FOMC meeting itself. You also, of course, have the Republican convention going on. Essentially, it's the Republican Party in the U.S. Coming together to elect their presidential nominee. I mean, of course, that's Donald Trump. There is no 2 ways about it, especially, of course, after the incident over the weekend. But he's, of course, picked his presidential nominee, which is, J.D. Vance. He's, of course, seen as a bit hawkish. So we'll have to see what the market makes of it. But as I've been saying, it's too early. Elections are in November. And you kind of sort of building onto it. I think the early indications, of course, are showing through in rates, are showing through in the dollar, which has also picked up a little bit on the upside. So I'll just come to markets and what they did. Equity markets were higher. Nasdaq about 0.4% up. You have 10-year yield, which was about 4 basis points to about 4.23%. Dollar index has been absolutely flat at about 104.26. Oil prices again flat, just under $85 a barrel mark. Now, just to circle back to levels here, you are higher. And I think one new element is that over the last 2 days, of course, you've got to sort of temper this with and make the nuance that there are lots of blocks. I mean, not now, but there have been lots of blocks, etc. But the point is, I think July, we are on track for July being a sizable month in terms of FII buying, and especially so as compared to what DIs have been doing so far this month. I mean, I think it's not been since December of 2023 that you have a month where FIs have outpaced DIs in terms of buying in the market. FIs actually have been sellers or small buyers, more like it. So let's see. I mean, we've got the budget, etc. So it's important. But so far, FI is outpacing what locals have done. Nifty, the important support stands at the 20-day moving average. Of course, there's enough distance now. 24,050 is that level. On the upside, the targets of the daily upper Bollinger Band, which stand at about 24,791. Extensions put the level for the Nifty at about 25,500. But before that, it's the daily upper Bollinger Band, which is that number on your screen. On the Nifty Bank, we closed higher. It was a much better session as compared to Friday, because Friday, of course, the market just sold. The Bank Nifty sold off completely. But even with yesterday's higher close, we traded within Friday's intraday range, within the highs and the low of Friday. For the Nifty Bank, a break above the high of 53,357 will confirm upsides, and supports for the Nifty Bank come in at about 51,750. So sort of near-term, short-term levels that we are watching out for. GIFT Nifty will come up on your screen, indicating an 18-point upside. I think it could be a market for stocks rather than a big move really coming through on the index. So we'll track markets as they open. Reema.
Well, let's just once again put the spotlight on the flows picture, because yesterday the FIs net bought 2,684 crore in the cash market, the second big day of buying. And now in the month of July, the FIs have nearly bought 13,500 crore of cash. The FIs sold yesterday, the second day of selling DII sold yesterday, second day of selling, but the selling was not much, just about 331, and much lower than the Friday's selling figure, which was about 1,650 crore. Though for the month of July, the DIIs are positive net buyers to the tune of 4,500 crore. So far, both the FIs and DIIs have given inflows in the cash market in this month. So today you've got the Nifty Financial Services and the Nifty Bank's weekly expiry. So the action could be hot in the last 1 hour. And in earnings today, Bajaj Auto, L&T Finance, Just Dial amongst the prominent ones. But you also have Century Textiles, DB Corp, Network 18 and TV18, whose earnings will be out later today.
Well, it's going to be an exciting session because the Nifty is making those strides towards the 25,000 odd mark. And today we have 2 weekly expiries. So we'll get to that in just a bit. What did the FIs do in yesterday's trading session, though? They added some long positions, and they have done that for the second day running. So they added more than 15,000 contracts on the long side in yesterday's trade, and they mildly covered some shorts of around 3,000 contracts. That takes the long exposure to around 80% odd. How are they positioned, though? The FI long positions, remember, it was holding at around 3.85 lakh contracts. The net long positions, well, that gradually came down all the way till around 3 lakh contracts. And now in the last couple of sessions, we're back towards the 3.5 lakh contracts. So this market is missing out on the FI short positions. But for the time being, the cash market flows are good enough to push us higher. You'd like some shorts, though, to get into the system. What about the options data? Well, yesterday's trade as well, we did see a fair bit of writing. The 24,500 put, 24,600 put, both of them did see a fair bit of open interest built up, and the premium as well comes up for you on the screen. Now that resistance has moved up, because we did see some writing at around the 24,700 call odd, which should bring us to the levels. On the downside, the level of around 24,400, that was a bit of a resistance when we were moving up. Now that becomes a bit of a support. 24,350 to around 24,400. The options data as well suggests that the 24,350 level is important. On the upside, since you're seeing a fair bit of writing at around the 24,700 call, well, that's the data point to watch, 24,750 odd. As I mentioned earlier, there are going to be 2 important contracts, weekly contracts that will expire today on the Nifty Bank as well as the Nifty Financial Services Index. So for the second half of trade, you'll have a bigger move on the financials and the banks because of this factor. 2 stocks that I'm looking at for today. One is Vedanta, that long-awaited QIP. Well, that's going to be important. Before that, the Nifty Bank, that's quite important, because the 20 DMA is a little lower from here. The problem is that the 52,800 mark has been a bit of a resistance mark. So it's still holding above those levels. Getting to the stocks I'm looking at, Vedanta. That one saw a bit of a decline from the recent peak. It's close to around 10% off its peak. For the last 1 year, it's up by close to around 60% odd. Now this QIP has come about, and that's something that the street was waiting forward for. Can the stock start a fresh leg post this 6,000-7,000 crores that it's looking to raise? That's going to be important. So that's one stock. And the other one I'm looking at is Zydus Life. It's been a rank outperformer in this year itself. It's sitting at a fresh 52-week high. We'll have the MSCI announcement, the inclusion announcement that comes in August, but the cutoff date will be sometime in this week itself. So that's why there is some positioning out there. I'll keep an eye out on that because as per a Nuvama note, well, that is a borderline inclusion. So keep an eye out on both these 2, Vedanta and Zydus Life.
The other 2 borderline potential inclusion stocks in are OFS, Oracle Financial Services, and the other one is Mphasis. And Mphasis saw a fair amount of buying in yesterday's trading session, but this is, of course, according to the Nuvama note. Zydus Life, OFSS, and Mphasis are potential stocks. They're on the borderline, but they could get included in the MSCI. But let's get to the money market views then. Abhishek Goenka of India FX and Asset Management says after the latest US CPI print, which was the lowest in 4 years, The probability of a 25 basis points rate cut by September has now risen to 93%. He remains bullish on the US rates and bearish on the dollar. He expects the rupee to underperform in a weak dollar environment as the RBI may look to correct the rupee overvaluation. He says the rupee has weakened just 0.4% in 2024, whereas other Asian currencies have weakened anywhere between 1.5% to 6.5% against the dollar. He expects the USD-INR pair to trade in a range of 82.7 to 83.7 against the dollar over the medium term.
All right, well, we have Vishal Goenka also commenting on bonds. He says that with all key macro numbers like CPI, WPI, industrial production being higher, bond yields should face resistance at current levels. He says demand for fixed income is likely being driven by global investors currently. Story from the US remains uncertain as well, with significant political and economic events ahead in the coming months. He expects the 10-year benchmark bond yield to trade between 6.96 to 7.01%.
Well, we have a lot of stock-specific action track for you today. We'll get to that in just a bit in our special Top 10 segment. We're looking at Vedanta, Jio Financial Services, Hudson Agro, Lupin, Century Textiles, and Pearl Global. All of them will be reacting to positive news flow. We have Paytm, Angel One, Unichem Lab, and Ipca Laboratories that will be reacting to negative news flow.